Greetings and welcome to another edition of Montpelier Connection. I'm State Representative Mike Mrowicki from Putney in the Windham 4 District, which includes Putney, Dummerston, and Westminster. Today's guest is Brattleboro's Mollie Burke. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
It's morning in Montpelier. It's an early start to the day, and thank you for taking the time before the busy day starts in. You're on the Transportation Committee again?
I am. This is my 6th year on the Transportation Committee.
Can you share with people again a little bit why you wanted to be on the Transportation Committee?
Well, one of the main reasons I would say is that I have been concerned about climate change for a very long time, and the transportation sector has been a very hard place to cut greenhouse gas emissions. We live in a state that's mostly rural, dispersed populations. It's very hard. We do have good public transit throughout the state, but it just can't take care of all our transportation needs. So I am very interested in promoting bicycle, also for health reasons, bicycling, walking. How do we make it possible for people to get around in other ways? And also for the elderly. Yeah. So there are a lot of factors here. We have a transportation system that was designed, in the 1950s to accommodate the automobile. And it's a very, we need to make some changes to accommodate different perspectives about how to live healthily in a healthy manner.
Now the railroad people were here yesterday. Anything going on in that area?
Lots going on with the rail. The state is very committed to getting the line along the western corridor from Burlington through Rutland, Bennington to Albany. And there's a grant that the state just got. The state has been very persistent in writing federal rail grants to fix up another 12 miles of track that they're going to be working on. There are bridges that need attention. It's keeping up that infrastructure is not cheap, and a lot of it requires grants. But the state has been very proactive about doing that. So I think that for economic development along the western part of the state, they don't have an interstate. They need that kind of infrastructure. We, in Brattleboro, have a train that goes through once a day. I think many people know about that. Eventually that train will be going to Montreal from Washington, D.C. It used to. Of course, it came through Brattleboro in the middle of the night in those years. And I don't know if people know that there is a $12 fare for, if you are traveling in Vermont, the state is subsidizing, and you can go for $12. You can go from Brattleboro to Essex, or Brattleboro to Montpelier, or Brattleboro to White River Junction. And in order to do that, don't go to the Amtrak website, go to the Vermont Agency of Transportation website, or Vermont Tourism and Marketing, and there is a code to get that fare. And you have to ask at Amtrak because they don't really know about it. But I just want to publicize that because it's a great deal. Yeah. People can come and it doesn't. You could go from Brattleboro to Montpelier, spend the night. You'd have to spend the night because of the train schedule. Come back the next day for $24.
Now you've taken the train up, right?
I have, and I wish that it worked with my schedule. Yeah. In order for me to do that, I would have to leave home on a Monday night, get in here at about 8:30, and I'd have to stay over Friday night and go home Saturday morning. Okay. The train leaves at like 9:30 in the morning. So I would do it if there were a train, and in fact, apparently in the 30s maybe, there were 6 trains a day from Brattleboro to New York. 6 trains a day.
Well, I remember talking to Senator Gannett, who grew up in Putney on Old Depot Road, and he said he used to go down.
He didn't grow up there, but he lived there.
During high school, he would take the train from Putney to Brattleboro for high school.
Yeah.
Well, that's great news. And that fare is only available online?
I believe you have to make a reservation a couple days ahead in order to get the fare. I forgot to mention it.
Okay.
So you have to make your reservation ahead of time in order to get the fare. If you just go there to buy the ticket on the train, and I'm not sure, I think you can buy a ticket on the train, but I think you can't get that fare. Yeah.
Well, that is a great fare, though. I know one of the things that I hear from people is that the train is expensive. More people would take it. sounds like we are making progress and trying to change the culture around using trains.
And it's a great way to travel.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful way to travel. There's Wi-Fi on the train. You settle back. You can do some work. You can read. You can look out the window. Going up up from Brattleboro north, a lot of it goes right along the Connecticut River.
Yeah. Now, Putney, my hometown, just received a grant. I think it's called the Transportation Alternative Grant System, and it's to extend our sidewalk again up towards Landmark College. What other grants like that are available to towns through transportation?
Well, the Federal Highway Reauthorization Bill changed. There used to be a category of grants called Transportation Enhancement Grants, and they would fund certain things like sidewalks, etc. And then alongside that, there was Safe Routes to Schools.
Right.
Now, with this new MAP 21, Moving Ahead for Progress in the 21st Century, which is the name of the new Federal Highway Reauthorization, they have cut some of that funding and lumped some of those grants together. So those grants, Safe Routes to Schools, are now competing, but that still does mean that there is money for projects. You have to submit a grant and win the grant.
Yeah.
And there's a committee here made up of people and two legislators actually on the Transportation Committee, among other people, who decide who gets those grants. So obviously it's a competitive process. So congratulations to Putney for getting that.
Well, it's something we've been pushing for. There's a number of things we've been pushing for a long time in town.
I'm aware of that section of road and how dangerous it is to walk along the
That's right.
state route.
That's, I think, going to be a real improvement for the town and really enhance the safety as well for all those students who we want to be walking. I know a lot of them do have cars, but it's a short walk into town. We want to encourage pedestrians, and the other sidewalks in town now, from the school to the co-op all the way, they get used a lot.
That is, I mean, when you think about it, I remember when there was no sidewalk there, and it was a very dangerous road to walk on. And if we want to promote a healthy lifestyle, and we want to cut down on vehicle traffic, we have to invest in the infrastructure to make it possible.
You bet. Something else we've got going in Putney, or hope to be going, is a park and ride. There's a little bit of controversy in town about that. Can you tell me about how they work in other parts of the state?
Well, I'd like to say that they are very popular in other parts of the state. There's one that's been in Richmond for a long time. People have to park on the grass. They're going to be extending that, but it is a well-used corridor. Between Richmond and the I-89 corridor, but they've proven to be very successful in cutting down. Okay, so if somebody says, I'll meet you we can carpool together. We'll meet and one of us will park our car, and that means that instead of two cars driving, say, into Montpelier from Richmond, there's one. There's one at exit 8 on I-91 at Windsor, and that apparently, and it has a bus stop there as well. Yeah. So we're trying to also, at the same time as provide alternatives for just single occupancy vehicles, the state is trying to make connections between rail, public transit, park and rides, bike ped. Apparently there's going to be bike racks at the Putney, so someone could ride their bike, park, meet a friend, ride into town, and not take their car. Save gas, save emissions, less air pollution.
So the idea is to get cars off the road, save gas,
the comprehensive energy plan of the state of Vermont is we are supposed to be 90% renewable by 2050. So how do we do that in transportation? It's very, very difficult. Right now, I think we're only at 5% or something. Yeah. And the state is investing in charging stations. We're doing a lot of work with that and trying to get public-private partnerships with people putting in charging stations. Apparently, there are going to be a couple of places at the park and ride to plug in a car. So electric vehicles is one way, public transit, rail, bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, carpooling. Yeah. And carpooling, a big component of carpooling is having a place where somebody can meet a carpool and carpool.
So this is part of our bigger plan in terms of the state meeting its energy goals, its conservation goals.
Its energy goals and renewable goals, and how do we? It's a very hard thing to change. We have to change a culture, too.
That's right.
And we're trying to change a culture. I like to talk about how in Montpelier, the climate for pedestrians is so wonderful.
Yeah.
You feel like you're standing there and you look like you might be thinking about crossing the street and somebody stops.
Yeah.
And I find that Brattleboro's getting better, but there's education that needs to happen about being aware of pedestrians, not driving so fast, thinking about how do we change that culture so that there's room for everybody to. We don't have an auto-centric transportation system. We have a multimodal.
Well, it is a big issue in Brattleboro right now. Well, what can the state do? I mean, what's done in other places in terms of what they call calming traffic?
Well, that requires sort of infrastructure, maybe traffic islands. There's been a discussion about having one in Canal Street, right where Maple Street comes in. There have been various discussions in town. The town did get a couple grants to improve the intersection at Western Avenue and Union Hill, right there, very bad intersection.
That is a bad one.
And also to do a study of Western Avenue, Route 9 from, I think, Academy School out a ways.
Yeah.
And I've walked that section, and there are issues.
Yeah.
That's a good place where kids can walk to school.
Tough place to drive right now, too. I drove out to West Brattleboro and...
I am working on the issue, trying to get...
I bet you're hearing from people about that.
I am, and I've been talking to V-Trans. The issue is that particular section is the responsibility of the town. It's not scheduled to be repaid by the state until 2019, so we are trying to see what could happen, what kind of help could the state provide us, and I've been talking to officials at V-Trans, and they're looking at the issue. So stay tuned.
It has been a tough winter. It's been a tough winter for people, cars, roads.
Right.
So what else is Transportation Committee going to be looking at this year?
Well, we just, right now what we do is we go through the whole transportation budget. We go through project by project. Every project that's out there, whether it's going to happen this year or in 2, 3, 4, or 5 years, we see what's happening. So we have a sense. So I can look up Brattleboro and say, I know exactly what's going to be happening in Brattleboro. And of course, the big thing that's happening in Brattleboro right now is the I-91 bridge. Yeah. I know there's some issues about that, about lights shining in people's eyes. And V-Trans, by the way, is the Vermont Agency of Transportation. They are aware of that, and they are looking at ways to sort of mitigate that problem.
Yeah.
And I know there are traffic backup issues too, which I've been talking to V-Trans about. I think there was an hour traffic delay last Martin Luther King weekend, and we have another holiday weekend coming up. So they're trying to communicate with ski areas, trying to tell people, stay for dinner, go home later, or go home earlier. Try not to go home at the time when you think everybody else is going to be.
Well, for Vermonters, it's an unusual occurrence. Perhaps for the out-of-staters, traffic like that is not unusual, though you might not expect it in Vermont. But the good news is we are taking care of our bridges like we haven't in quite a long time. Are we on schedule now to keep up with maintenance of our bridges?
Yes, the state is. I mean, we have improved in terms of the percentage that we have of what they call structurally deficient bridges, which doesn't necessarily mean they're dangerous, but they're. And the state has been making great progress since we received the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act money in 2009, 2010. Then we had Tropical Storm Irene money. We've had an infusion of money, not necessarily for great reasons.
Obama bucks.
But it's definitely helped, and I think that we're being very responsible about maintenance and not just saying we can't afford it. We have to figure out, you have to provide a safe transportation system. You can't have people worrying about or closing bridges and having people have and of course we all know, I think people in Brattleboro were not quite as aware of it as people in the western part of the state, but a few years ago the Champlain Bridge, huge number of traffic going over to New York State, had to be closed immediately, causing 100-mile commutes for people. Farmers had fields on both sides of the river. People were working. It was an amazing, and the state stepped in and got that bridge project done in record time.
it was amazing.
Thanks a lot to my friend and colleague, Representative Diane Lamper, who on the Transportation Committee, who
and it was
worked very hard on
amazing
that issue.
interstate collaborative too, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Both states had to work together to get that done, and they did. Another example of when government does good things for people.
We need government.
You bet. Good government can work. And
not for everything, but but we can't have private entities building bridges.
No. I know there are other states where that's starting to happen. Private highways. Not sure we want to go there. Are there things that, other than transportation, that you're, like last year you were very interested in the driving privileges for undocumented workers.
Right.
Is there anything else on the agenda for you this year that you're looking outside of the regular realm of your committee?
I don't have a particular bill like that this year. I think I'm trying to focus on, there are a few things on the Transportation Committee pending, other issues like I have a bill to double the penalties for speeding in a school zone.
Yeah. Things
like that, things that have to do with safety, and some other things that give a bill that I'm working on with AARP, which will actually has been introduced, but we actually don't want to present it till next year, to give towns some leeway in setting their own speed limits without a traffic and engineering study. So it's trying to find that balance between townspeople who know exactly the situation and the state engineers saying, no, the traffic can go 35 when in fact, well, you had that issue in Putney.
There's an issue in Putney similarly.
And there is a bill now that I think that a couple of people from Calais have introduced about being able to set a speed limit at 25 on a dirt road. Yeah,
it certainly makes sense because it's a public safety issue, and it doesn't hurt to slow down for lots of reasons. We talked about slow living, and that sometimes includes slow driving.
Right. We all need to slow live a little better. It's a little hard to do in the legislature.
Yeah, sometimes
we do fast living here.
Yeah.
Fast-paced is what I mean.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time because our schedules are full here when we're up there. We try and condense a lot into one day, but I think one of our jobs is to help share with the folks back home what's going on here, give a little different perspective than what they might read in the newspapers or hear on the nightly news. So I appreciate you taking the time to give a little behind the scenes.
Thank you, Mike, for taking the time to do this
and
providing the opportunity. And I guess I just want to say, I think it'll probably come on the TV station will put down my contact information. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to help you, talk to you, and see if I can answer your questions or help you if you have a problem.
One of the things that we do year-round is constituent service, and that doesn't stop because we're here in Montpelier, so we encourage people to stay in touch with us. They will be putting up our phone numbers, our emails. Email is a great way to get in touch with us. We can check that throughout the day. But if you have a concern, whether it's you're having a problem with heat, you're having a problem with your road, having a problem with health care, we've had the opportunity while we're here to actually knock on people's doors and get answers sometimes quicker than we might during the off session. But that constituent service is an important part of our job, so we encourage you to be in touch with us.
And the other thing is, we want to encourage people to come up and visit the statehouse. It's a beautiful building. If you let us know, we can facilitate your tour. You're coming up. It's a very open, accessible place. You can walk into any committee room, listen to what's going on, sit in the cafeteria, talk to your representatives. It's a very open place.
It really is, and we encourage people to come. We just had a school group from Putney here this week. We'll have some more. Give us a call. Let us know. We'll give you the 10-cent tour and show you around the place. It really is an accessible place, and it's a place that just drips with history. And it's the people's house, so take advantage of that. One more thank you. Thanks to the people back at BCTV for making this possible and for bringing our work in Montpelier back home to you. That's all for now, and take care.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Bye-bye now. you.